because a new law goes into effect starting August 1st, a true team effort with Proof Alliance, your volunteers, Representative Ruth Richardson, Senator Melissa Franson, Senator Jerry Ralph, and Representative Kelly Morrison, to name some of those key members of the Minnesota legislature. Tell us about this law, a first of its kind in our country.
Right. We are really hopeful that this is really a groundbreaking law for Minnesota, and we hope will have ripple effects actually across the country. So starting August 1st, it is now a law in Minnesota that every child entering the foster care system, being placed in foster care, will be screened for prenatal exposure to alcohol. And why that is so significant, and why we've been working on this for so many years and finally got it done this year, is, really, if you just think about it, imagine if you are you've gone through all the work to become a licensed foster care provider, and you might have a child, you might take on a child, and you would want to know if that child was perhaps hard of hearing or had epilepsy or autism. But all too often, a child does have prenatal exposure to alcohol and an FASD, and that's not identified. And so with this law, we will be able to systemically and systematically screen kids so we can do a much better job as the child welfare system and as foster parents to parent and support the best outcomes for these kids.
Right, and some of those children and FASDs in general also have a racial aspect to that. Isn't that true?
Right. It's really important to note that alcohol consumption during pregnancy happens across all socioeconomic groups, all races. College-educated white women can be some of the most likely women to continue to drink, for example, wine during pregnancy. So it is not something that is necessarily more common, but it is oftentimes identified not as what it is in different groups, but is labeled in different ways. And so, for example, oftentimes we might look at this as poor behavior or poor parenting with kids. And it's really important to note that FASD is, if it's understood, it can't be cured, but if it is understood, it can be accommodated and we can have better outcomes. Understanding and identifying it is the first step towards improving the outcomes for children. And so that's why we're concerned that we do this consistently with all people, and not just target certain groups to say, well, we probably think that this is more common in this population, because it is really something that is prevalent in all of our communities.
So the very fact that any child entering Minnesota foster care will be screened for prenatal exposure to alcohol will help the system and will help officials really understand if they have any cognitive or physical issues that the foster family should know about, maybe get them some treatment, maybe get them some help that can prevent even worse outcomes, right?
Exactly. I think one of the most important pieces of information that people don't realize is when alcohol is consumed during pregnancy, it can cause permanent brain injury. And that can look like a lot of different things. That means that dependent upon when alcohol was consumed, whatever part of the brain is developing can be impacted. So the child might have memory issues. He or she might have cognitive impairments, intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, trouble processing things. But if you don't understand that that's actually a brain injury, it can look like a behavior, and it can look like this child is willfully trying not to comply, or being stubborn, or being non-compliant, or not following directions, when in fact those are the symptoms that they're experiencing because their brain is not working the way that that a neurotypical child's brain might work. And so then that's when we start going down a really slippery slope of identifying a child as potentially a naughty child, or a child that's non-compliant or is not trying, when actually what that child is dealing with is the challenges of their disability. So if we understand that and we think about how we might parent a child that has a brain injury as opposed to a child that we think has maybe discipline issues or we don't have those insights, I think that changes the lens in terms of our approach. And that's what we're seeking to do, is to really change the way that we are approaching this issue from the very beginning.
All right, and it's very exciting. Sara Messelt is the CEO of Proof Alliance. A new law will go into effect August 1st. All children entering Minnesota foster care will be screened for prenatal alcohol exposure. I understand, Sara, that you have gotten interest from many other states in our country, as well as even as far away as Australia, about this.
Yeah, I think that if you're a part of the FASD community at all, you know that these are the kinds of things that we have been working so hard on for so many years, and have really, this issue has been just consistently misunderstood, underidentified, misidentified, and not really understood the comprehensiveness of how this impacts our society. We know that the child welfare system, that FASD is thought to be 17 to 19 times more prevalent in the foster care system than in the general public. And so we know it's a huge problem, and we know it is a big part of really having really good outcomes for kids that have the unfortunate challenge of needing to be put into foster care. And so we've had huge interest from across the country. I think I visited with 15 other states last week, and we have friends in Australia and Scotland that have also reached out to say, tell us what your law looks like. What are the tools? What are what is the protocol? So we're really trying to make sure that we get this well established, obviously, in the state of Minnesota, but really want to be a force for good on a larger scale, and we'll be sharing our knowledge and our findings and our tools with other states and other countries as we're able.
Which is so great. All right, so we're running out of time, but when I started tweeting, you were coming on with me. Former Minnesota First Lady Susan Carlson, and former judge, shared on Twitter, and she said she would call in. She's on the line with us. Judge Carlson, thank you so much for calling in, because this is a pet topic for you. This is a big win for Minnesota.
Oh, it's a huge win, and I just want to thank Proof Alliance for spearheading it, as well as the Minnesota legislature for passing this language, because it is important. And Roshini, one of the things that I've learned in the many years that I've been involved, it takes just small victories that lead to bigger victories. And I would call this a big victory, and it will be a big victory for the field, because then it will show that we can do this on a systemic level in our systems, which has been a missing piece.
And I know you were working on this many decades ago for a long time. So this is such a win. So congratulations, ladies. Thank you for joining me today. And I share in your celebration, and we'll mention it again on August 1st when the law goes into effect. But this is really good. So I'm so glad, too, the fight isn't over. You're going to continue to advise other states and other countries. So congratulations to both of you.
Yeah. Thanks, Roshini. And I'm working on the national level, and we're hoping to get national focus on policy and funding, which will help other states as well. So this will really help that effort. So,
all right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.